Ladies, good evening and welcome to my weekly Zoom meeting where I'm going to discuss basically a different fertility topic each week, and then I'm going to answer all your fertility questions. So I just want to make sure that you stay around, stay to the end, and I'll have all your questions answered. So just make sure that you don't drop it in the chat. What I want you to do is literally unmute yourself, turn your camera on, and ask me directly. So that way we can talk face to face. I'm a people person. I work better face to face. And so, Darcy, why don't you say hello? Come on board. Unmute yourself.
Sure. Hi. Hello there.
Oh, nice to have you here.
Thank you.
I think this is for me. I miss your face. So nice to see you. I'm here with fairy wings at the back of you. Your angel wings.
Oh yeah. All I have to do is do this, and
Can you
so
show everyone your fairy
there's
wings?
my wings.
Those angel wings. So you might be watching, Darcy has been doing some coaching with me, and we completed our coaching. And so I haven't seen you for a week, and it's so nice to see your face. So welcome.
Nice to see yours too.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. We always have fun.
I have a Dutch testing that I'm going to submit as soon as I can, and I'll hopefully get a reading from you.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited about that. We're going to talk about the Dutch today. We're going to talk a lot about the Dutch today.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
This is exciting.
Yay.
Unmute yourself and say hello.
Hi.
Liz. Well, fancy seeing you here.
Hi again. I just put on different glasses and it's still me.
The beautiful thing about Liz is that Liz is a yogi, and she was on a coaching call with me just before. So we've got a double dose of each other. So I love this. So thank you for joining this meeting, Liz.
Yeah.
Be here, darling.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I'm going to get started. We are going to be talking about how the gut impacts your estrogen levels. And I'm going to try and keep it short and keep it sharp. And that way, we can get to the question part of things. So let me dive in. So what is the estrobolome and how does it affect the estrogen metabolism? So before I go there, let's rewind, because we get it gets a bit confusing, because the estrobolome sounds like the microbiome, doesn't it? And this is, and they're related. And so we're going to start first of all with the microbiome, because the estrobolome is a subset of the microbiome. So if we look at the microbiome, this is trillions of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microbes that's in your gut, and it helps you digest the food. This is a very simple translation, by the way, and I'm trying to keep it really simple. And it helps support your immunity, your heart health, your brain health, and your fertility. So they are collectively known as the microbiome. But if we just look at, the trillions of cells, like if you just look at the science of this, we have, 40 trillion bacterial cells in your body. And we have 30 trillion human cells. So that means that we are actually more bacteria than we are human. I just found that fascinating. And I've always been fascinated by that when I studied microbiology in my training. So now we're going to move over to the estrobolome. So as I've said, it's a subset of the microbiome, and it's a specific part of your gut that, consists of the bacteria, but it's more about how it metabolizes estrogen. All right, and the estrogens that we're going to talk about, because there are 3 different primary forms of estrogen we're going to talk about today. And the estrobolome influences not only your body's estrogen levels by regulating metabolism, the activation and the recycling of estrogen, but it's directly involved in maintaining your hormonal balance. And it also impacts other aspects of your health. I won't go too much into them because I'm going to focus more on fertility, but this affects your mood, it affects your cognitive function, it affects your bone density, your heart health, cholesterol, and cardiovascular health. So the estrobolome is really responsible for so much. And if we, because I'm working integratively, I'm giving it a Western, slant on things. But remember, I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine. And so I've always got to put it through the lens of Chinese medicine. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, the concept of the estrobolome can be understood in terms of the digestive system, which we call the spleen chi. All right. So the spleen in Chinese medicine, it's not the same. It's not the same as the anatomical spleen in Western medicine. So it's spleen in Western medicine. It filters the blood and it removes abnormal cells. It's like a filtration system. In Chinese medicine, the spleen, it governs transport and transformation and has a downward bearing action, which means that the spleen's responsible for transforming the food you eat and what you drink, and it makes qi and blood. And that's pretty much the foundation of your health and fertility, which is why sometimes, people get confused. They say, well, my Chinese doctor says my spleen's not working, and your Western doctor says, well, we've done all these functional testing, not your spleen. Your doctor of Chinese medicine doesn't know what they're talking about. Now, this is where it gets very confusing. We've got two systems of medicine that are talking about the spleen, but they're two different philosophies. It's almost like comparing an apple and an orange. They're two different things. All right. So when we're talking about the spleen in Chinese medicine, we're talking about the spleen from that perspective and the philosophy of the spleen. It governs the limbs, has that downward action. It works on the digestive process. It governs the mind. It's about, if you're worrisome. So there's a lot of functions of the spleen from a Chinese medicine perspective that you need to take into consideration. But in terms of working with the estrobolome, I just want to keep it very simple. So it's through the lens of the digestive system, and we call it the spleen chi. All right, so the healthy spleen chi, it's responsible for the metabolism, and it's also responsible for the regulation of all of your bodily substances, akin to the role of the estrobolome. So that's the link. That's how they're similar. And so when the spleen chi is really, really strong and balanced, and it's not about the pursuit of perfection, it's about balance. And, we're always trying to find that perfect balance, but there's always that equilibrium. And, things tip this way. So that's what happens with estrogen and progesterone. They tend to tip. We're always trying to find the balance, but they tip. All right. So anyway, for today, we're going to focus on the important role of your estrobolome, on your hormonal balance, particularly when it comes to estrogen. So as I said before, we have 3 primary forms of estrogen. Now, this is really interesting because, we're going in a microscopic way. So the 3 forms of estrogen, we have E1, E2, and E3. So that's pretty easy to remember, isn't it? E1, E2, E3. 1, 2, and 3. So E1 is estrone. It's primarily manufactured in the ovaries, and it can also be manufactured in your adipose tissue. This is otherwise known as your body fat, but then some of it can be produced from your adrenal glands. All right. The estriol, this is the least potent form of estrogen, and it's predominant in pregnancy as it's produced in large quantities by the placenta. Now, the one that's the most important, this is the E2. This is what you see on your serum, your blood serum, your estradiol. Okay, it's the major form of estrogen produced in the ovaries. And though some is also manufactured by the adrenals and during pregnancy by the placenta, you see there's a lot of crossover, but I'm trying to make it really basic and simple. It's the most abundant one we produce in our reproductive years, and the most active and the most potent. All right, it's the estradiol. Now, if we're looking at our BBT chart, that's what we're tracking, the estradiol. So, it's going to peak at ovulation, just before ovulation. You see the estrogen rise. If you're doing your Anito charts and, or if you're tracking it on your BBT, you'll see that rise. And then it's what, the estradiol is what helps basically thicken the lining, the endometrial lining. It also helps mature the developing follicles, and it thins the cervical mucus to make it more sperm friendly. So it does quite a lot. But, let's dive deeper. And what else does? It plays a role in breast development. It gives us the beautiful, divine, feminine goddess body that we're all trying to chisel and look like a man, So that's where I bring my Maya Angelou and our poem in, all right, phenomenal woman. It's the span of my hips. It's the stride of my step. It's the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. All right, so that's what your estradiol does. It gives you the curvaceous, that beautiful womanly look that separates us from men. We don't want to look like men. We want to be curvy. We want to be a phenomenal, beautiful, spanful, hipful, curvaceous woman. All right, so think of a pear. We love that shape. That's the embodiment of fertility. And, if I'm looking at people on the table, I actually want to see some of that adipose tissue on the belly below the navel. We don't want abs. We don't want to see your abs when we're making babies, right? Because we're going to deplete the estrogen levels. So I want you to really love your tummy and breathe into it. Make it soft. Enjoy it, all right? So the thing is that when it gets out of control, all right, it plays a big role in your endometriosis. It plays a role in fibroids because it's estrogen dominant, right? These things feed off too much estradiol and estrogen. So that's when you're getting really lots of breast tenderness, and then we can develop endometrial cancers. But it's if you're getting a lot of PMS symptoms, you might not be, when we'll get more into the clearance of estrogen, but it's important just to maintain and know that estradiol is maintaining your reproductive health. It supports your bone growth. It supports your heart health, your memory, and your cognitive function. All right. So when you start to break it down, you can see we've got to look at it. And that's what I love about the Dutch test, which I will explain as we get through this talk. But while we're talking about these estrogen, these three different primary markers of, forms of estrogen, basically I'm going to break it down simply because we get common denominators of estrogen imbalance. So we're going to look at the two main ones. We're going to keep it basic and brief. So high estrogen levels, as I've mentioned, this is when, you might have mood swings, you're going to have those PMT issues, weight struggles, breast tenderness, headaches. You might have acne, bloating. You might have ovarian cysts, endometriosis, fluid retention. There can be things such as constipation, diarrhea. Now, and then when it remains too high for too long, this is when, we've got issues with endometriosis and fibroids and those cancers. Then we've got the low estrogen levels. This is when it's too low. So this can impair or delay your ovulation, all right, when it's low, all right? It just means that, often you might need more time. As we age, sometimes our BBT charts, we ovulate longer because we need more time, but it's because the estrogen is being depleted as we age, all right? So I know that some of my patients, they worry about, ovulating later in their cycle, but, it's just we needed that time for that maturation. So, when it's low, when the estrogen levels are low, it can lead to problems with your sleep. It can lead to problems with your mood. You can have vaginal dryness, frequent UTIs. That's another thing we'll often see. Your libido can be depleted, loss of bone density, osteoporosis. And then, we're hitting that perimenopausal, all those symptoms of perimenopause, hot flushes, changing cycles, that fluidity, cycles changing. Now, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, what is estrogen dominance? And is there a difference between low progesterone and estrogen dominance or excess estrogen? That's a really common question I get asked a lot in the groups, in my school group, in my Facebook group. So I've answered this question many, many, many times. But simply put, it just means that the estrogen is too high relative to your progesterone. And it just means two things, all right? So you can have progesterone deficiency, which is caused by the lack of ovulation. And that's because, the corpus luteum health is really important because that's what produces the progesterone. So if you've got PCOS or you have shut down your ovaries and been on the pill, you haven't been ovulating. Some women have been on the pill for 10 years, 20 years, and they're wondering why they've got no progesterone because they haven't, they haven't been ovulating. So we've got to wake all of that up. So, often when women come off birth control, we've got to fix ovulation because we've got to teach your ovaries and teach your body how to ovulate again. So anyway, there can also be, so the other thing that can happen, so, it's not complicated, trying to keep it very simple, compromised estrogen detoxification pathways. So that means that your estrogen's recycling back in your body, and estrogen needs to be escorted out. It needs fiber. It needs fiber as an escort. It needs to exit the body, and when I started learning all of this, I didn't even realize that we have to excrete our hormones. I didn't know any of this. So, learning this, it's like amazing to learn this. So the 5 scenarios I might see in my practice, you might have high estrogen, normal progesterone. You might have high estrogen, low progesterone. You might have normal estrogen, low progesterone. You can have low estrogen, even lower progesterone. And then you can have them both normal. And this is where it gets tricky. It gets tricky because this person can be exposed to, your endocrine disrupting chemicals, or xenoestrogens is another way of putting it, that creates the estrogen dominance. And it's you're just getting that build-up, and then you're not excreting it. So this is where I love jumping into the Dutch testing. And by far, it's the best way to see what these 3 primary forms of estrogen are doing in the body. And that's why I love the Dutch testing. This is the dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And it shows you these 3 pathways that the estrogens are literally metabolized in the liver. All right, the Dutch test results, it gives you a pie chart, and I love it. It's a little pie chart, sometimes looking at numbers and going, but, I love the Dutch because it gives you a little pie chart, green, red, blue. You look at the pie and you go, all right, we want to be following the green pathway. It's the best pathway. All right. And so you see quickly what pathway is which one following. So I just find it creates that, extensive profile. There's nothing like it in the world that does that. And in addition, you've got the reproductive hormones, your adrenal hormones, your melatonin, along with the metabolites. You've also then, it covers your daily free cortisol pattern, your DHEA production, and then there's the organic oats test. So it's looking at your gut. It looks at your B12, it looks at your biotin markers, if there's any gut dysbiosis and oxidative stress. So quite simply, the Dutch is the most accurate way and the most comprehensive test in the world to assess your hormonal health. And by the way, I offer this testing to all my patients. So it's one thing that I just love. It's so nice and it gives you such a blueprint of what's going on in your body and your neurotransmitters. It's wonderful. I've been starting to work a lot with amino acids with my patients now. I've learned so much about this. And this is only recent, a deep dive for that for me. And I'm always learning from my patients. Like my patients, all of you are my teachers. I'm the student. You're the teachers. So one thing I've learned about the estrobolome and microbiome is that they share a very close relationship with the estrogen, and that, what causes this to go, astray, awry. All right. So it's like a lot of it is this, dysbiosis that I spoke about, which the testing will pick that up. But it can be like, let's just break it down. Let's break it down really simply. So a diet low in fiber, as I told you, we need that. Estrogen needs an escort. That means it means to escort via the bowels. That means we need healthy poop, and we need not to be having constipation and diarrhea in that alternation. All right. So it's that, my beautiful ladies, it's fiber, and fiber is in your oats. It's in your quinoa and chia seeds and legumes. It's in your fruits and vegetables and nuts, okay, and seeds. Quinoa is a seed. Then we've got, sometimes you might have, a diet low in quality fats, or it might be even high. We've got to find the right balance. we've got to find the right balance. And, you might have a diet that is low in fruits and vegetables. Might not be enough diversity or enough ferments in your food to digest these fats. So let's look at that. Then it can be a diet that's high in sugar or processed foods. So that's why we need that diversity of all your whole foods and your fruits and vegetables and fiber for that healthy microbiome and estrobolome. Now, the biggest thing that's going to disrupt the balance is antibiotics. And I'm not anti-antibiotics because they're often needed, especially if you've got giardia or if you've got something that's really impacting you, like it could be an tooth abscess. All right, we sometimes need to use them. Try and use them sparingly is all I suggest, because not only does it kill off the harmful bacteria, but it kills off the beneficial bacteria. So that means we're nuking everything and we've got to start from scratch. So it's like every time you have antibiotics, you've got to treat yourself like a newborn. We've got to reintroduce foods. We've got to realign the gut. So I will often, start with a gut healing protocol after any antibiotic use. If you are taking antibiotics, then you need to take probiotics with them and probiotic and prebiotic rich foods. All right. So antibiotics is a big thing with the estrobolome. And so many of us, the first thing we get, doctors just throw them at everything. We're now at a point where the antibiotics aren't working anymore because we've just overused them, and we need them for the serious things in the hospitals. Stress, I would put this down as number one. All right, this is chronic stress. It just alters the whole composition of the gut microbiome. It affects your ability to regulate the immune response and maintain your hormonal balance. It's the greatest cause. It's the most insidious because you can't often see it. What we project to the world and what's actually going on the inside. As women, we tend to be more masochistic. We die on the sword. Men tend to explode with the liver yang rising, right? Men they explode. We implode as women. So this affects the gut microbiome. All right. So there can be a lack of physical activity, to being too sedentary. COVID did this to all of us. We were all too sedentary. We weren't even allowed out in Melbourne. We were just prisoners in our own home. We were allowed out for 1 hour of a day, and we were the most shut down, city in the world. And I'll never forget that time. It was a tragic time for all of us, but it made us this obesity problem that's happening, and that adipose tissue. Remember, with estrogen. Okay, what it does? Yeah. So infections. So you can have gastrointestinal infections, like, as I mentioned, the bacteria, viruses, or parasites, they can disrupt the normal balance. Alcohol and caffeine. Like, I remove this when we're working on fertility. I understand if you're going away on a weekend and we have a little bit of 80-20 flexibility, that's okay. We need, like I mentioned to Liz in our coaching call today, we need, Zorba and Buddha to meet in the center. So you need a little bit of flexibility with this process, because sometimes when we're doing this fertility process, it has to be perfect, and you have to let that go. You need to relax a little bit of 20% surrender is okay some of the time. Then besides your antibiotics, I just want to go over a couple of other medications that affect the estrobolome, and that's your non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, your PPIs, your protein pump inhibitors, and your, I've mentioned the contraceptives, so that's the other one. There's two more things I want to cover. Your endocrine disrupting chemicals, this exposure to this. See, often we don't know, exposure to mold, exposure to pesticides, the things that are in our water, chloride, fluoride, these pesticides that are sprayed on our foods. So often a lot of them aren't tested, so where possible, we're going to try and find organic, and I'll go a little bit more into that further on when we're going to balance things. The last thing, and this is important as the first thing that I said. So the number one cause of this to affect the microbiome is the stress. The last one, which is the most important, is the sleep, right? If you're not sleeping and you're getting that circadian rhythm disruption, it's going to affect your hormonal balance, your gut microbiome, your gut microbiota, and it's going to affect the balance. So sleep is so important. So when I start working with my coaching, they're two things that I really work on is the stress and getting the sleep. So sometimes I'll prescribe Chinese herbs. Sometimes I will prescribe melatonin, 3 to 5 milligrams. We need to get your circadian rhythm working, and waking up with the sunshine, open the windows, drink your licorice tea, lower the cortisol. It's just, there's lots of things we can do. So we want to work on that cortisol awakening response. And if your cortisol awakening response is high, it could be, all right, we'll have lemon balm. If your cortisol awakening response is low, it's the licorice tea to lift you up. So if you wake up tired, it's licorice. If you wake up stressed and wired, it's lemon balm. So we've got to work on that, all right? Now we're going to jump into how do we balance estrogen. So this is where I'll be looking at, I'm not going to call this an estrogen dominance protocol because it's not about that. Because as I've mentioned before, there's all different ratios of what it is, but we just want to balance your estrogen in your body naturally. All right. So eating lots of cruciferous vegetables. So this is all of your brassica family that are high in diindolylmethane. This is your DIM, diindolylmethane. Try and say that, diindolylmethane. I used to get tongue-tied saying that. Right. What I love about, your cruciferous vegetables, they're high in that. And this helps block your estradiol. So it's going to, when you've got high levels of it or you're not clearing it, it not only acts as the fiber escort, but it just balances your estrogen. This is found in your broccoli, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, radishes, cauliflower, and bok choy. So we want to aim for 3 servings a day. Then we've got bitter greens, green things, broccoli sprouts. They're packed with sulforaphane. Right, I did an Instagram post on that on my Dr. Fiona and it's present in all your cruciferous vegetables too. But broccoli sprouts have the highest concentration of sulforaphane, and that means that they're high in DIM. So I just eat a handful. I just have a handful with my scrambled eggs. So there's the diversity I'm talking about. So I might have for breakfast my scrambled eggs. I've got my avocado. I've got my sulforaphane, my broccoli sprouts, and I've got my sauerkraut. And that's what I will have for breakfast. Sometimes I will saute some spinach, to go with that. Heaven, bit of greens on the side. My husband looks at my plate and he goes, wow, that looks pretty impressive. And I'm always taking photographs of my own breakfast. I'm pretty impressed with how I do breakfast. Anyway, let's move forward. What else? Turmeric, all right? Turmeric counters the proliferative effect of estrogen, and it's a really powerful anti-inflammatory. So we can do our turmeric on coconut lattes. I often recommend them in the luteal phase. In fact, you can do them at any phase. We just want to be careful about taking turmeric supplements. I'll only prescribe them. They need to be under the direction of your prescribing doctor, partly because, if you're doing IVF stims or, it's, your body can build it up quickly. And, we don't want to affect the balance. So it's better if you just eat it, unless you're under the guidance of a doctor or a practitioner, and they can say, yes, you've got endo. Yes, we're going to put you on the turmeric tablets, the curcumin, all right, because it's not for everyone. Just know that it's not for everyone. But if we're making a powdered turmeric paste with your coconut oil and making it into a latte, then of course you can have 1 a day. That's fabulous. And you can do it at any phase of your cycle. Then we've got maca. All right, maca, this is your Peruvian ginseng. It's also an adaptogen. It can lower estradiol and it can promote progesterone. Now, this is another one that we need to be, it doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes it can make your symptoms worse. So if it does, then you just need to stop. Try it. Give it a go. I can't stand it. It tastes terrible, Muriel. I say just, ugh. Can't do it. It's just not for me. I've tried to hide it in my food. I can't cope with it. So, you might want to put it in a capsule, but, with fertility and supplements, we're already taking so many things. So, I tried doing it in a tea and I almost went, I'm not poo-pooing maca because it is brilliant and it's brilliant when it works. All right. But it just doesn't work for everyone. So if you are trying it, a tablespoon a day, and, good luck finding what you can put in it. Let me know what works because maybe then I can start taking it. I'd love to take some maca and enjoy it. Part of this part of this practice, and I was talking about this today with Liz, it's about joy. We've got to find the joy in this process, joy practices. So if it's not inspiring joy, don't take it. Pomegranates, these are also good for balancing estrogen. All right. Then consume, healthy protein, rich, fat-rich diet. I've got most of my patients on seed cycling or seed rotation. I've got them, walk time on feet, exercising regularly, yoga, but it's not power yoga. It's not heated yoga. It's a yin practice or, just a moderate flow, holding static poses for longer. All right. It's wearing the blue light glasses at night. I get my patients to meditate daily. I teach them breathing techniques. And, when they're yoga teachers, it's even more fabulous because they teach me things, I'll often get my patients to look at beef liver, so, we're drinking either, bone broth or consuming about 3 to 4 ounces of grass-fed liver per week. Magnesium glycinate daily is great for estrogen. I sell this on my supplement store. And if you do buy it from me, you receive a 20% discount. So the site is drfionatasoni.store. All right, so you can get that magnesium glycinate there. But, you also look at your magnesium-rich foods or your leafy greens. Then, as I've mentioned, the most important thing, it's avoiding the stress, avoiding the caffeine, avoiding the alcohol, the sugar, the artificial sweeteners. These are the avoid lists. Avoid highly processed. Avoid, what else? Trans fats. Too much soy is not a good thing, right? It's, I'd rather you eat soy-rich foods, can have some edamame, but actually drinking soy, it's too concentrated. It's going to throw out your hormonal balance. So I have all my patients off soy milk. Then what else? Conventional meats, those processed conventional meats, not so good, especially when we're trying to balance estrogen. We've got, as I mentioned, the birth control pill, the conventionally raised animals and the farmed fish. They're often given antibiotics, and, the farm fish, it's just terrible what's going on with this. It just throws out all of our hormones. So, we've got boys, I'm seeing boys that are just like, all 6'5" and above, because of these conventionally raised animals that are filled with these antibiotics. And so men are growing like giants. It's crazy. So one of the secrets here is with the farm fish, like I want you to pick fish using tools like this website. It's called seafoodwatch.org. Seafoodwatch.org. All right, it's just really good to stay up to date. And, sometimes I get it wrong. We've always got to keep up to date with the latest data. I'm trying to keep on top of it, but sometimes you fall behind. So if you find out something new, share. We share the love as women. We evolve. We grow from learning. And I can't claim to know everything. I don't. I know nothing. I'm learning with you as we go. I'm learning as we go. So when I'm really working to restore the gut microbiome, estrobolome, from a Chinese medicine perspective, that I work integratively. But what I'll do is first of all, I normally implement detoxification strategies. Now, this can be a cleanse. It can be a liver supporting protocol. Sometimes I'll use goo formulas. These are formulas that really go in and get rid of all your parasites and worms and all those things that are sneaking and hiding. And so the goo formulas are really awesome, and we can do them when people are depleted. There's all different strategies in Chinese medicine that I love, but the goo formulas are powerful when I'm doing a detoxification. But then if I'm looking at the herbs that I might use, right, if I'm working on the estrobolome, I'll be looking at shengjang, and we all know what that is, fresh ginger. So shengjang tongue, all right, shanja, hawthorn berries. You can use this as a tea, like you can get them off Amazon, hawthorn berries. And I get them, not the whole ones, but you can get them sliced. I find them better sliced because then, they absorb better in the water. And, you can drink them as a tea, and you can do that after meals. It's great for that food stagnation, and it works on the spleen gene. If I'm working with acupressure points, I'll be looking at the elbow, large intestine 11. All right. Yeah. Chuchi. I'll be looking at stomach 36 below the patella on the just you've got this tibial tuberosity on your shin bone, 1 finger breadth to the side. We call that stomach 36, otherwise known as Zhanli. And, so that's the Yang Ming. I might work on the Yin Wei Mai. These are just some strategies I'd be working if I was doing acupuncture on you. If I was looking at herbal formulas from a Chinese medicine perspective, I'd be looking at Bu Zhong Yi Qi Tang. This works on when I want to, if you're getting spotting before your period, or your BBT is dropping. I like this because it lifts. It lifts. It raises the yang qi. It lifts you up. It's a lifting up formula. It raises the yang. It builds the blood. I might use Gui Bi Tang. We call this formula restore the spleen. Remember, the spleen qi is related to the estrobolome. So it also works on the heart blood. So I'll often use this formula in pregnancy, postpartum, when there's excessive bleeding, when there is really chronic gut stuff going on. There could be even chronic gastritis or gastroenteritis or functional urine bleeding, panic attacks, peptic ulcers. All right, there's even sleep disorders. So Gui Bi Tang, I would say, is one of my favorite all-time formulas for the estrobolome. Then if we're looking at digestive things such as Lejunzatang or Shenling Baijusan, these is when the spleen qi is really depleted and then it's got that dampness, your coat, the turbidity on your tongue. You can almost scrape the tongue. That's when we'll use those 2 formulas. And then if I've got cold, really, really cold patients, at the moment I've got a lovely lady here in Melbourne. She's super, super, super cold. We need to really expel the cold for her and tonify her spleen yang. So, I'm considering, that's just thinking out loud, Li Zhongwan, all right? It tonifies the spleen yang, so it's going to warm her up, expel the cold, but it's going to really support that estrobolome. So basically, if there's any dysbiosis, loose bowels, bloating, abdominal cramping, reflux, signs of any toxicity, and I'm not sure where to go, I'll often start with the GU formulas for 1 to 3 cycles as a clearance. And then I'll work on the underlying pathology. So that's basically how I would work on your estrobolome from a Chinese medicine perspective. So just to summarize and just to wrap this up really quickly and simply. So heal the gut, heal the hormones. Heal the gut, heal the hormones. Then we want to regulate the nervous system and calm the stress, fix the sleep, and then you're going to regulate the estrobolome. You're going to then balance your hormones. So thank you. Thank you for listening. I want you to maybe unmute, ask me any questions. Does anyone have any questions?
I have, I don't know if I have too many questions. I have maybe about 3. Are there any symptoms that we may experience when we wake up in the morning that tells us whether or not our cortisol is high or low?
Yeah. Well, when it's high, it's like I'm ruminating thoughts. Oh, I haven't done this and I've got to do that. And then you're multitasking. You're doing 100 things at once. You're actually not present. You're going and putting the washing on. You've got the breakfast on the go. And then you're running around like an absolute crazy person,
Okay. I mean, that's that's normally me, but I mean okay.
Me too.
And then well, I mean, because I would like to, especially during my luteal phase, I would like to get away from that because I know that our progesterone turns into cortisol in our bodies, right?
It's a great question, Darcy. Love this question. All right. So how do we fix that? Oxytocin. You know how we get oxytocin? Best way is human touch. Human touch, holding hands. With Stephen, it's like melting hugs. It's like literally how many melting hugs. But when you do a melting hug, it's not like you do the bodies have got to merge as one. That means your heart, your belly, your reproductive organs, you merge as one, and you hold the hug for 20 seconds, and you just be in each other's space. Right? That's the best thing. So that means anyone you see that's really close, say, can I just have a hug, please? Can I please pat your puppy? Have you got is that your pussy cat? I call it the pet medicine. Yeah. Even
Yeah.
Okay.
plants, they're
And
conscious. Go
so,
and hug a tree. Be with nature. Be in awe. Appreciation.
okay.
Yeah.
So when our cortisol is high is when you said we should maybe take lemon balm tea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You
Okay.
there.
Um, yeah. And
Mm.
then another question I had is yesterday I was in a very cold environment at work. I was in an office that I was not used to being in for star testing. And I was just exposed to this. I could feel you know, I just felt like everything was revved up in my body. And by the time I got home, suddenly I felt this warmth come over me. And it wasn't because of my surroundings, but I just wanted to lay in bed. And it was just like an internal body warmth. And so I was wondering if that has anything to do with
Yeah. You know what that's called?
that.
It's called a cortisol dump. It's like
Okay.
everything that, because, cold just suppresses everything. And then the moment you come home, it's like, oh, there you go. It's almost like, when you have acupuncture, remember when you
Uh-huh.
go and you lay in the bed and you go, oh, Jesus, what happened to me? I just
Mhm.
absolutely bombed out because
Mhm.
it's dumping all the cortisol out of your body. All right. So that warmth is like your body is trying to balance the stress and the cold. So our bodies
Okay.
aren't designed to actually be in the cold. Like, okay, can I just I'm going to say something really radical on this, and I'm
Mm.
probably going to get all these haters by saying this. But all of this jumping into cold water, you know, and I love my husband for this because he sent me this TikTok video. And everyone, don't get me wrong, I think it's great when you've got all high levels of anti-inflammation, endometriosis, things where it's extreme inflammation, but it's not for everyone. It shocks the kidneys and it puts us in this cold in the body. And, as women, we need a warm palace and we need warmth. So
Mhm.
going into cold and these cold baths, and this is this trend with the Wim Hof breathing and jumping into cold waters. It's not a fertility thing that we'd recommend. So you can see what it did to your body. It stressed out your body and your body
Mhm.
just went, so that was your body's, it was doing it. It was working for you. So you want to
Okay.
bless your body. The rest was the best thing you could have done. Having a little
Okay.
sleep and just really just allowing your body to come back to a place of homeostasis and balance. So it's
Okay.
actually, it's working for you, Darcy. Your body's
Okay.
performing beautifully.
Okay. Good. Um, yeah. I mean, like I said, I have one more question. Like,
Please go.
okay. Okay. So like I've been tracking on Anito and I don't know if I'm getting enough progesterone on my luteal phase. And I have not started taking these, although I have started putting the oil, but I don't know if I should be taking this.
Yeah. All
This
right.
is
Stop. Well, you haven't done your Dutch test yet, have you?
no.
No. So
Yes, I have, but I just need to
you've already done
send
it?
it over.
You've already done it?
Yeah,
Yes. Don't
in the freezer right now. Yeah.
thing yet, because sometimes we just load it up and then we don't need it. All right. And we don't,
Okay.
then if you take it relative, if it goes too high, then we throw out the balance of estrogen. So no, don't take it yet till I get the results. So
Okay.
let me just let me put my eyes on it before we
Okay.
add that in. So
Okay.
remember, I'm always less is best. We want to keep that balance naturally as much as we can. And remember, you've been ovulating beautifully, Darcy. We've seen your BBT. You've actually had a great ovulation. Sometimes we think it's worse than it is, and then you see the result and you're like, one lady, she said, I know it's the progesterone. I just know it's the progesterone. And then we got on the call, and I'm like, your progesterone's the best part of the chart. She's just like,
Awesome.
what? And she was just lit up. I've said, it's not the progesterone. For her, it was the androgens. It was like the DHEA was really low. And so,
Okay.
you think it's one thing, it feels like it, but no, we
Yeah.
always look at the data first. That's why I won't do anything without data. That's why I always have the BBT chart. I always do, and I really encourage the Dutch testing. So we've got a blueprint. We test every 6 months, and then we just follow you through the process until we just get you there. Until we get you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does. It's a
Beautiful.
lot. So I can't wait to, hear
I
my
can't
results. Yeah.
Can't wait to have a chat with you. Have some huggy bears on our call. Liz, do you have any questions for me? Anything?
Yeah, I had a question about probiotics. He was talking about microbiome. Is it a good idea to cycle your probiotics, right? Because they all there's lots of different strains, right?
Exactly.
You shouldn't be taking the same probiotic for months
Right.
at a time.
Great question. That's a fantastic question. And that's a wonderful question. And the answer is yes. I cycle everything. Like I have patients that have been on things and, I had one of the patients who was taking so many things, she got pancreatitis. We are not meant to take all of these supplements, ladies. Food and diversity is your friend. So yes, that's a great question. Cycle it. Maybe we'll do 1 or 2 cycles of it, pull it out. Add in some prebiotics, some artichokes, and then we go right getting in the chia seeds and all the diversity of foods. And have I tried sauerkraut? I might try the kimchi next week, and I might do the kefir, or I might do the beet kvass the next week, in the shopping list. Yes, diversity is so integral. Yes, so brilliant question. Thank you.
Okay, so I've been on the same probiotic for a couple months now, so I should take it out.
Yeah.
Focus on the food, sauerkraut, other things. Okay.
Yeah. Especially now, Liz, that you were talking about in our coaching call, that your gut is great. So why wouldn't you let it run? And you've built up the microbiota. It's all there, honey. Like,
okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Okay. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me. Your questions are brilliant, because remember, when you ask these questions, a lot of the women, they're thinking the same thing, but not many people have the courage to ask the question. So I implore you, if you're listening to the replay, I implore you to join us on these Zoom meetings. Come on and reveal yourself, ask me a question. You get a mini consultation. And it's great. And we all learn from the questions. And if I don't have the answer, trust me, I'll find the answer and I'll have it for the next meeting. So thank you for joining me today. I will see you next week. I'm going to love you and leave you.